Endless selection of gifts from the heart. Seaford's Jewelers, with watches from Omega, Tag Heuer, and over 30 other top brands. A huge selection of certified diamonds at the guaranteed lowest prices. Jewelry designs by Scott K, Simon G, and many others. Fine gifts and accessories by Lennox, Swarovski, Yadro, and more. For fine diamonds, jewelry, watches, and gifts at amazing savings, Seaford's Jewelers.
Together or far apart, make it from the heart.
For every occasion, Seaford's Jewelers, New Jersey's legendary jeweler, 449 New Brunswick Avenue in Fords.
While it may be disappointing that school, sports, and other activities are canceled, these cancellations help stop or slow the spread of coronavirus. Canceling events that draw crowds is an example of social distancing. Social distancing means increasing the physical space between people to avoid spreading illness. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Working from home and visiting electronically instead of in person are also ways to stay safe. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DeFrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. Tonight, it's Sports Talk New York, Facebook Live with Mark Rosenman.
And welcome to everyone to Sports Talk New York over 540 AM in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, streaming over sportstalknylive.com, as well as on the Facebook Live and YouTube Live apps. We're really happy to have you with us. Obviously, with the Facebook Live app, you can actually just ask questions during the show via the chat. 2 great guest nights, Steve Grogan coming up in a little while, and then after that, we have Scott Spindler of RidinRosters. Really great stuff for MLB The Show. So, if you're new to the show, we started off each and every week with our Major League Baseball beat reporter. It's time for the Copco Major League report. With spring underway, it means that warm weather is here, and it's a great time to keep those windows and doors open. Let the fresh air in, keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes with a standard with a lifetime warranty and a patented speed reducer so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of bulky storm doors or sliding screen doors. Call 631-440-1100 for free estimates. Purchase a unit and get free installation by mentioning Sports Talk New York. Call them again at 631-440-1100 or visit them at clearviewlongisland.com. Welcome, Johnny. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Don't bury the lead here. Did you get John Condon to do a new intro for you?
Well, no. Listen, if we got John Condon to do a new intro, that would be more than a lead, considering he's been dead for like 20 years.
Which name did I miss? Did I screw up?
Mike Wyszynski, the person who took over for John Condon. Yes, that is.
Okay.
Yeah, we had him on. We did a Facebook Live sports phone show, and he's actually King Wally. So that's who that is, and so that was pretty cool. All right, so
outstanding.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, all right, the big news. I don't know if it's big news, but there might be a reunion of sorts out at Citi Field or wherever the Mets eventually play, with 2 of their pitchers from what was considered one of the best staffs back then. What are you hearing about Bartolo Colon and Matt Harvey possibly reuniting with the Mets?
Well, Matt Harvey has been a rumor. I think that's more a fan-driven rumor than anything with Matt Harvey. And Bartolo Colon, he has come out and said he wants to finish his career with the Mets, play one more year. And it would seem to be a pipe dream, but the one reason I would give any of this credence is that if and when baseball comes back, teams are going to depend on depth to get through a shortened season and a shortened spring training. You might have more injuries, and you might see a lot of teams pick some guys up from the scrap heap. Some would say scrap heap, some would say waiver wire. But if you're looking for a chance at reunions like this might be the season for it. This might be the season where a lot of teams, including the Mets, say, hey, let's get a couple extra starters. There might be 30-man rosters. So it would be the perfect time to just take flyers on guys like Bartolo Colon and Matt Harvey and guys who have pitched for them before. If they have anything left, they might be able to use these guys. So while in a normal situation, I would say no chance, this isn't a normal situation. These aren't normal times. So it would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me.
Listen, the clock is definitely ticking right now. If they do plan on playing baseball, and obviously I believe from all we've heard, the targeted date is July 4th. That would be significant as far as the date. It'd be significant as far as the restart. However, to get that done, we're getting close to a point where the union and the owners need to come to an agreement. What are some of the sticking points that might hold this up? And if it doesn't happen in the next week or two, does that mean there's going to be no baseball this season?
I would say so. The thing that we're hearing is that everything is going to happen this week. I think we're going to know by this time next week whether there's going to be a season or not. And certainly some of the sticking points is the fact that the goalposts have been moved. It's not going to be, the owners don't want a prorated salary. They want revenue sharing along with a prorated salary, whereas players would make 13% of their salary instead of 50% of their salary. And I think that's a sticking point for the players. But then the other side of it is the Players Association apparently wants some loosened restrictions on that 67-page memo that baseball put out about all the safety precautions and whatnot. So it's going to be a back and forth, and I think it's a coin flip as to whether there's going to be a season, just with the acrimony that you hear from baseball's Players Association and the owners. You don't hear that type of acrimony with the NHL. You don't hear that type of acrimony with the NBA. So it is a little dicey. But I can't imagine there's not going to be a season. I can't imagine that baseball would let the other sports take over the summer and get it right in the football. And I can't imagine that the players, because look, you could tell if the players say, okay, it's not worth it to play a shortened season with a low salary, that's fine. But guess what? If there's no season, then the owners are going to basically end free agency as we know it. Nobody's going to make any money in 2021 when it comes to signing new contracts. And if you don't take the short-term loss, you're going to take a lot of long-term loss, and it's going to last for years.
Yeah, you take a look at some of these things that would benefit the Mets. The fact you're going to have a shortened season, and there could be a DH. So now you're going to have Robinson Cano can play a little more at DH, and obviously Cespedes can play. And if you add the rosters, the loss of Syndergaard doesn't hurt you so much. If you're a Met fan, you kind of have to love the shortened season, but then it comes with that little asterisk. If you do have that successful season and you end up winning a World Series on this type of season, it's always, if it was a regular season, this would have never happened.
Yeah, but I go the other way in that. If you're talking, because we talk about asterisks a lot. Oh, well, there'll be an asterisk to this season if there's to this championship for whoever wins it, because it's a short season. Does anybody remember that the San Antonio Spurs won the 99 title because it was a shortened? Does anybody give them an asterisk for that shortened season? No, nobody talks about that 20 years later. I don't think, because of situations that are not in anybody's control. I don't think there really is going to be an asterisk. I think people are going to scream about it at the start, but then history will provide the asterisk. Like the Astros, I think they're going to get, and I'm not an asterisk guy, but the Astros are going to have that asterisk in a lot of people's minds. I don't think whoever wins the title in a shortened season will have any sort of asterisk. I think people will, as long as it's a full playoffs and not a shortened playoffs, I don't think there'll be asterisks involved in that for any team. And in terms of the Mets, they've got a lot of guys that'll benefit playing DH in addition to Cespedes and Cano. Dom Smith can play some DH. Pete Alonso can play some DH. J.D. Davis can play some DH. As long as, and with anybody in the league, I think the Mets are the best suited to play in the National League with a designated hitter.
All right, Johnny, thanks so much. John Coppinger heard here each and every week over 540 AM Sports Talk New York, as well as the Facebook Live version of the show. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, New England Patriot legend Steve Grogan joins us, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DeFrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is the man who spent 16 seasons in the NFL, all of them as quarterback for the New England Patriots. He was the prototype for today's agile, durable, dual-threat quarterback, even though he played in an era known for pocket passers. He led the league in both passing and quarterback rushing statistics several times in his career and ran for a quarterback record 12 touchdowns in 1976, a record that stood for 35 seasons. He ran for over 500 yards in 1978, led the team to an NFL record 3,156 rushing yards, which stood until it was eclipsed by the 2019 Ravens. When he retired in 1990, he held many of the team's passing and longevity records. He was inducted into the New England Patriots Hall of Fame in 1995. It is a thrill to welcome number 14, the one and only Steve Grogan, to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Mark.
So first and most importantly, how are you holding up during this pandemic and staying at home and hopefully everyone in your family is healthy?
Well, we're all doing just fine. I've actually relocated to the Kansas City area, so it's not nearly as bad out here as it is in Massachusetts and New York, New Jersey. But they're starting to open up things here. The golf courses were open several weeks ago, so I could do a little bit of that. So we're getting by.
Nice. All right. So as long as we're talking Kansas, take us back to Ottawa High School in Ottawa, Kansas, where you led your team to state titles in basketball and track, as well as state runner-up finish in football. What coach in high school had the biggest impact on you and why?
Well, there were several coaches. H.K. Stevens was the basketball coach, had a big influence on me. Don Cornos, who was our track coach, had a big influence on me. We just had, at that particular time, we had a group of guys that were all in the same class that loved sports, that had been playing together since we were in the 7th grade. And we just had a lot of success on whatever field or court or track it was. And it was a heck of a good time.
What's also cool is that you and your wide receiver on your high school team were both pole vaulters. The quarterback-wide receiver relationship is one of the most important relationships in football. How much of the time that the two of you guys spent together on that track team added to that relationship and benefited on the football field?
Well, I'm sure it helped some, even though we probably didn't throw the ball more than 5 times a game in high school. So there really didn't need to be a big, huge relationship. But as I said, that there were 7 or 8 of us that our senior year had been playing together for just so long. We all had great relationships with each other. All of them were very good athletes besides me. And any time you can spend time with guys like that, you're going to be successful.
You're back home in Kansas, but the Ottawa High School football stadium is named in your honor. Looking back on your career and everything you've accomplished, how much does having your high school football field named after you mean to you?
That was pretty special when when they notified me that's what they were going to do. I think it was back in 86 or 87. To know that the town folks, the Board of Education, mayor, whoever, felt like that I was that important to the city of Ottawa, a town that I loved growing up in. It was really special.
So with everything that you accomplished and all the sports you participated in high school, I have to imagine there were lots of choices for you when it came to colleges. What went into your choice to go to Kansas State University?
I got recruited fairly heavily by the Kansas State, KU, Kansas University, Missouri University. But I had always planned on going to the little NAIA school in my hometown, Ottawa University. My dad had gone there. Several uncles had gone there. My brother, who's younger than me, wound up going there. I wanted to play 3 sports, and I knew I could do it at Ottawa University, but I had an uncle that had started at Kansas State and transferred to Ottawa, and he said to me at one point during all the decision-making that, you know, you could always try it in the big pond, and if you're not good enough for the big pond, you can go to the small pond and be successful. So Kansas State seemed to be the place for me. We had my junior year in high school, there were 2 quarterbacks in our conference. One was David James, who was a draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs. The other was Tom Owens, who went to play at Wichita State when they still had football. And I knew if I went to Kansas, which was closer to my hometown of Ottawa, I probably would be sitting on the bench until David James graduated and left. So I thought I had a chance in Manhattan to play my junior year. They had a Lynn Dickey, who played in the NFL for years, had just left, and the quarterback named Dennis Morrison, who was drafted by the 49ers, didn't play very long, but he was taking over the job. So I figured back then freshmen couldn't play. So I couldn't play my freshman year. I didn't want to redshirt my sophomore year, and I thought maybe I could back him up my sophomore year and take over as a starter if things worked out my junior year, and that's exactly what happened.
So it's interesting. You mentioned Lynn Dickey, and you take a look at your head coach, Vince Gibson, and the time he was there at K-State. He doesn't have a great record, but he did manage to get a couple of quarterbacks drafted in the NFL. What did you learn most from Coach Gibson?
Well, Coach Gibson had some good coaches around him, too. Coach Gibson was a fireball, a lot of enthusiasm, promoted the program. We weren't very good back then. I mean, we were 3-8, 5-6, 4-7, so it was very difficult to recruit to Manhattan, Kansas at that particular time. But Coach Gibson gave me the opportunity, and fortunately I took that opportunity and was able to do something with it.
So 1975, 20 quarterbacks are taken in the draft. You were the 3rd quarterback picked behind Steve Bartkowski and Gary Sheed. Of the 20 quarterbacks that were drafted, you played more games than any of them. What do you recall about draft day and the feeling going in? Did you have any inkling which teams were interested? And just overall, what do you remember about that day?
I really had no idea what teams were interested. I did go back to Boston. The Patriots had me back there to I had a neck problem my senior year, missed a little bit of time. I saw a doctor back there who, believe it or not, informed me that he thought it would be dangerous for me to continue to play football with the problem I had in my neck. And I went back to the stadium, and Coach Fairbanks, Chuck Fairbanks was the coach at the time. He asked me how it went, and I said everything went great. I went home. The Dallas Cowboys called me and wanted to know. They had heard I took a physical for New England. Back in those days, they didn't share information like they do at the Combine now. And I didn't want word getting around that I may have a problem, so I told them I was trying to graduate on time and I had some tests coming up and that there's just no way I could make it down there. And I was doing my student teaching, trying to graduate on time, and I took the day off from that, sat around my dorm room waiting just in case a phone call would come. And I think it was about 5:30 Central Time when the phone rang. It was Coach Fairbanks, and they had drafted me in the 5th round.
It's so interesting because the Patriots basically, if you go back and read articles about it, they selected you with the intention of developing you into a serviceable backup. However, you immediately forced your way onto the field during your rookie season. You started that season behind former first-round overall pick Jim Plunkett. You eventually take the starting job, starting 7 games while appearing in 13 total. It should be noted that Jim Plunkett was only 28 years old at that point. What do you think Coach Fairbanks saw that made him make that move to make you the starter?
Well, first of all, I didn't fight my way into the job. Jim Plunkett got hurt in the final preseason game. They had one other veteran in front of me, Nhl Graff, and he played the first 5 or 6 games, didn't play extremely well. We didn't win much. And they put me in a game down at Shea Stadium against the New York Jets.
Mm-hmm. I was there.
In the fourth quarter, I threw a touchdown pass to Russ Francis. The next day, they activated Plunkett off the injured list, cut Nhl Graff, and then I was backing up Plunkett for 2 weeks, and then he got hurt again, and I became the starter. And I think Jim had just gotten beaten up so much in New England, he was ready for a change, and they had a chance to trade him to San Francisco. We got a bunch of high draft picks because of that kind of formed our team in the late 70s and early 80s. Guys like Don Hasselbeck, Pete Brock, Tim Fox, guys that stuck around for a while and helped us make the team a successful team. And then, I started getting banged up a little bit myself and traded jobs. Started back up with Matt Cavanaugh for a while, and then with Tony Eason for a while, and then with several other guys for a while. It was just a crazy up and down time.
It's interesting because during your rookie season, when you did get in, you threw for 1,976 yards, 11 touchdowns. Additionally, you added 110 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. As you mentioned, the Patriots moved on from Jim Plunkett, trading him to the 49ers. How much confidence, once Plunkett was traded, going into the following season, knowing that you were the starter at such a young age, how much confidence did that give you going into that season?
Oh, a lot of confidence. There's no question about that. At the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what's going on here? I was a 5th-round draft pick, played in a terrible college program, although I enjoyed every minute of it. How is it I've become a starter in my second year in the NFL? I didn't worry too much about that. I just went out and enjoyed playing football and did the best I could.
Well, you talk about that, but then let's carry it a step further, as you recorded 12 rushing touchdowns in that second season, which was a record that would stand until 2011 when Cam Newton ran for 14. That team did a complete turnaround from the 3-11 in the previous year to 11-3 in 76. What was the major difference that led to such a dramatic turnaround in that second year for you?
Well, I think we had some of those draft picks that I was talking about. We got from the Plunkett trade that stepped right in and made a difference in our team. We had some veterans that were much better in the leadership role that second year with me. We started winning early in the year. We lost the first game, and I think we won 3 in a row. We beat the Raiders something like 49-14 or something in that respect, and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were coming off their second Super Bowl win, beat them in Pittsburgh, and we just kind of built it on that momentum. And between the veterans and the young guys, we just had a great team.
So that second season is also your first taste of playoff football. What do you remember about that game against, at that point, that season, they were 14-1, the Raiders. You guys were winning that game 21-10 going into the fourth quarter. What do you remember most about that first taste of NFL playoff football?
Well, it was pretty exciting. We knew the Raiders would do anything to win after we beat them earlier in the season. Playing in their stadium. It was obvious when we went for a walk through the day before that Al Davis had watered the field a lot and let the grass grow pretty high to slow down our running game, which was tremendous. And then the other one was there was roughing the passer call late in the game on Ray Hamilton, which was, we'll debate that to eternity with different people, but it sure looked like it was a bad call. And had that not been called, more than likely we'd have wound up winning the game and moving on in the playoffs.
How much confidence had built up over the end of that 6-win streak that you had put together at the end of the year going into those playoffs? Not many people can put together 6 wins in the NFL straight.
No, I think we were pretty confident when we went out there that we were going to win the game. And the Raiders came down to making a couple extra plays toward the end that kept us out of it.
So the 1978 Patriots make it back to the playoffs. That 78 Patriots still own the record for most rushing yards in a season. You're a huge part of that success. While that offense also featured Sam Cunningham, you added some impressive numbers of your own. That season, you recorded 539 yards on the ground, becoming one of the 4 members of the 78 Patriots with 500 or more rushing yards. Back then, you maybe take a look at the Lions, Greg Landry, Fran Tarkenton. There weren't many quarterbacks that went out of the pocket. So 2 things. Who did you fashion your game around? Like growing up, what quarterback inspired you to be that type of quarterback? And then you mentioned the injuries, and we'll list them a little later on during this interview. But how much of a toll did that style of quarterbacking take on you?
Well, it took a little bit of a toll, but it was something that I knew I did well. And I think Coach Fairbanks was a guy who came from Oklahoma where they ran the wishbone offense, and he wasn't afraid to let his quarterbacks run. And maybe it was because I was a 5th-round pick and he figured he could replace me very easily if something happened to me. I don't know. But,
wow.
We had designed runs for me, quarterback draws, bootlegs, one thing or the other, and then you add in a lot of scrambling around from the pocket, and the yards just seemed to build up.
That season included a 7-game winning streak. The Patriots had outscored opponents 358 to 286. You win the East. You meet up with the Oilers, who you had lost to in Week 11, 26 to 23, close game. Looking back on it, knowing how well you guys played them in Week 11, how disappointing was that 31-14 loss versus Houston? And looking over the overall body of work, is that which playoff game stands out the most to you as the most disappointing one?
I think the one in 76 was much more disappointing than 78, even though, we had maybe a better team in 78, but I got banged up late in the year. I was having a knee problem. I don't think I finished that playoff game just because my knee wouldn't let me. I started it, but couldn't finish. So the one in 76 hurt a lot. The Raiders won. They played Pittsburgh the next week. Pittsburgh had one healthy running back, and then Minnesota in the Super Bowl, and they never won a Super Bowl as many times as they got there. So that would have been the year to make everything happen. 78 was a fun year. We had a great offensive line. We were just hammering the ball down people's throats. We had guys like Stanley Morgan on the outside with tremendous speed, so our play action passes were really nice, and it just wasn't meant to be.
So, obviously you're for scrambling and going out of the pocket, but you still possess a lot, extremely talented arm. Your best statistical season came in 79, throwing for over 3,000 yards, league-leading 28 touchdowns, 16 yards per completion, also led the league. You mentioned Stanley Morgan. You also had Harold Jackson. Each of them averaged over 22 yards per catch. That was also Ron Earhart's first year as head coach. And looking at your numbers, the 423 attempts were a career high. I know that Ron was your offensive coordinator, under, your former coach, but how difficult was the transition from, this seemed to be a much more pass-oriented offense to a more well-balanced attack under Coach Fairbanks? And which of the two systems did you prefer?
Well, the one thing that Ron Earhart did when he took over, he called me in his office and said they were thinking about letting me call my own plays. I've been in the same offense going on 5 years. And I spent a lot of time in the off season studying how we called plays, why we called plays. I think he recognized the knowledge that I had of the game and the feel I had for calling the game. And I don't know that because I was calling the plays, I wasn't really trying to throw the ball more. It just, with our running game, things opened up so much more that I got some nice stats.
We mentioned the wear and tear on the type of game and the toll it took on you. And in the early 80s, you mentioned the several injuries, and the Patriots drafted Tony Champagne-Eason in the first round of the 1983 NFL draft. By the 85 season, Eason had taken over the starting position. Patriots started out 2-3. Coach Raymond Berry benched Eason, and you won 6 straight games. And that went on to make a storybook season. It took a turn as you suffered a broken leg in Week 12 against the Jets. Eason, in that game, the Patriots lost 16-13 in overtime, fell out of first place in the AFC East. Patriots went 3-2 in the remaining 5 games, finished the season 11-5. You guys earned the wild card berth, eventually reached Super Bowl, where you faced the Chicago Bears. Throughout that playoff run, knowing how well the team played with you at quarterback, and basically that season without you at quarterback, they were a 500 team, 5-5. How tough was it to be on the bench, even though the team was winning those playoff games? You know, there's even a story out there that you lobbied during those playoff games and going into that Super Bowl that you even wanted to go in on special teams.
That's true. When we got to the Super Bowl, I knew that myself and Tom Ramsey, the other backup quarterback, were the only 2 guys that were not going to get on the field for the Super Bowl. And I was talking to Dante Skarnecki, our special teams coach. He said, "Let me block for extra points. I'll cover kicks. Anything to get on the field during the Super Bowl." And it was always no, no, no. And then as it turned out, Eason wasn't feeling well, had the flu or something, and got off to a rough start, and Coach Berry made the change. I went in and had thoughts of turning the game around, but the Chicago Bears had quite a defense that year. The coaches, I never watched the film after the game was over with. Coaches told me I threw the ball 31 times and got knocked down on 29 of them. So it was a long afternoon, but I was on the field, and that made me happy.
Well, not only were you on the field, and obviously you play in a Super Bowl, and you're such a part of that climb from the Patriots, turning that initial season around and making them a prominent team for many years. But you were also the only quarterback to put up points in the playoffs against the Bears. I know it's not the same as winning the Super Bowl, but when you look back at that, do you take satisfaction over the fact that you're the only quarterback that was able to put up points in postseason against them?
I don't know if that makes me feel any better about losing the Super Bowl, but it was nice to be able to throw a touchdown pass. I got Irving Fryer on a quick little slant route down in the red zone, and he was able to take it in. So at least we weren't shut out.
One of the things that made you a fan favorite in Patriot Nation was your unparalleled toughness. Without a doubt, you're one of the toughest quarterbacks in the game. Played through an endless string of injuries throughout your career. During your 16-year career, you endured 5 knee surgeries, cracked fibula, 2 ruptured discs in your neck, broken left hand, 2 separated shoulders, 3 concussions, and plenty more injuries. Despite all this, nothing could keep you from returning to the field. That's one of those things that analytics or even scouting can't see. So where did that toughness come from, and how important was that attitude to be able to help you accomplish what you were able to accomplish in the game of football?
Number one, I love to play football, and especially Ron Earhart started it with letting me call plays. Raymond Berry was our wide receiver coach during that time, and then he was the head coach when Eason got hurt in '85, and I went in and he told me to call my own plays. So that was pretty special. It was easier for me to look at the offensive line on a 3rd and 1 and say, what do you guys got for me? Or we need a first down here, Stanley. What can you get a first down with? That was fun. That made it really interesting. And now I've forgotten the rest of your question.
It's just the toughness. How important was it to for your success?
Well,
and where did that toughness come from?
I always felt like I was was not a quarterback. I was a football player, and I didn't want the guys in the huddle with me to think I was some sissy that couldn't take the physical part of the game. So I never wanted them to feel that way. And my dad was a tough guy. He was a coach. That probably had a big influence on me. And I'm sure I watched too many John Wayne movies when I was a kid, because John Wayne was always a tough guy in every movie, and I loved it.
So, lastly, at the time of your retirement, you led the franchise as the all-time leader in passing yards, 26,886, passing touchdowns, 182. As of 2019, you're currently ranked third in passing yards and passing touchdowns behind two pretty good quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. Your 16 seasons are second most ever for a Patriots player, behind Tom Brady. You also held the Patriots' previously single-game record with a 153.9 quarterback rating, achieved by completing 13 of 18 passes, 315 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interception against the Jets, another game I was at, September 9th, 1979. And that was before Bledsoe posted a perfect 158.3 rating against the Colts. Looking back on that body of work, what is the one thing you're most proud of about your career?
I would have to say it was the fact that I was able to adjust in several ways. One, I adjusted from being a starter to a backup, and then back to a starter, and then back to a backup. That was difficult at times, but I was able to do that. And the other way I adjusted was when I came in the league, I was a runner, got a lot of yards on the ground, threw a lot of deep passes, did all that kind of stuff. And then when I started having knee problems, I was able to transition my game to become a pocket passer, and a fairly successful one. And, you look at a lot of the guys that have come after me that were great runners early in their career, and they, once they can't run anymore, they just kind of disappear. So I was able to persevere.
You are in the New England area a lot with your sporting goods store. Having been able to watch Drew Bledsoe and then, Tom Brady carry on that quarterback legacy in New England, what have you thought about their careers as well?
Bledsoe had a really good career for about, 8 years
yeah.
there. Did a lot of nice things. But he only did one thing wrong. He tried to take a hit from one of the New York Jets, and it cost him the job for the next 20 years. So Tom Brady hasn't done anything much wrong since he's taken over. He's an amazing athlete as a quarterback. He throws the ball well. He understands the offense well. It's really going to be interesting to see how he does in a different system in Tampa Bay this year. I thought he'd come back. I couldn't imagine starting over place at age 42 had I played that long. So we'll have to watch and see what happens.
Mark had mentioned your toughness and on your way back from injuries. I'm not sure if you when you see Alex Smith's injury, does it bring you back to that day against the Jets? And what have you thought of his journey back?
Well, it was very similar to the Joe Theismann injury that I watched on Monday Night Football. And you try not to think about things like that when you're a player. And the crazy thing is, that day I broke my leg, walking out of the tunnel before the game, one of the Jets fans yelled at me, "Hey, Grogan, we're going to do to you what we did to Theismann," or what happened to Theismann, or whatever it was. And then it turns out I broke my leg, not nearly as bad as Theismann. But Alex Smith was devastating. I was out here a lot in Kansas City at the time all that was going on, and the fact that he's getting himself back to where he thinks he can play again is great. I wish him all the luck, and I'm sure he's getting the best treatment, and he's got some abilities, so somebody can use him when he's healthy.
Right before we let you go, you just mentioned the name Smith, and it kind of reminded me, and I might have this wrong, but I think at the very late stages of your career, you guys were playing against the Bills, and I'm not sure if it was Bubba Smith that hit you, and you kind of felt that it might be the time to get out of the game when he said something to you when he picked you up. Is that correct? Do I have that story right?
That's pretty close. It was Bruce Smith.
Oh, it's Bruce
Smith knocked me down, was standing over the top of me, reached his hand down to me to help me up, He goes, "I'm sorry, Mr. Grogan, are you okay?" He called me Mr. Grogan, and I must be getting old.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for your time tonight. Always love watching you play, except 2 games a year against the Jets. That was an absolute nightmare for me. You always
I'll
lit us up.
a quick story before you cut me off.
Oh, great. Go ahead.
I was giving a speech to a group of people back in the 90s sometime, and some guy in the front row, as they introduced me, goes, "Go Jets!" And I walked up to the podium, and I pointed at him. I said, "You a Jets fan?" He says, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, we got something in common. I'm a Jets fan, too. I have my best games against them."
You absolutely did. I can vouch for that. Yeah.
There you go.
I had season tickets for all those years where you just seem to always light us up and still love you as a player. So that tells you something about the way you played the game.
I appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Steve. Be safe. Be healthy.
Enjoy talking with you. You bet.
You got Steve Grogan, New England Patriots legend. We'll be back with Russ Cohn and the NHL Report right after this.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They're there with 60 years of experience behind them to help educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minetto Hill Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertston, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princeins.com for an online quote, or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Rosen and Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. If you're just tuning in, you missed a great half hour with New England Patriots legend Steve Grogan, one of the toughest quarterbacks back in the day. The game is different, obviously, these days, and but he was one tough SOB for sure. I mean, there's no question, and he always lit up the Jets. Want to welcome everyone that's watching us on the Facebook Live edition as well, so feel free to throw comments in the underneath the feed and we see them. So if there's a question you want to ask about beat reporters or our guests, feel free to just throw it in the chat. Right now it's time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with the rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of all those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer woods, a state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a tabletop hockey game that players 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. How you doing, Russ?
I don't know. I mean, you're bringing up Steve Grogan, and I'm thinking about how he beat the Jets 56-3 on Monday Night Football. It's not a good memory.
I told him the same thing, but yet I really did appreciate his game and liked him as a quarterback. He's one of those guys that, even though he always lit you up, you respected him, and he's one of those guys that, he wasn't arrogant. He was tough. And so you never hated, even though he lit your team up, you never hated Steve Grogan. I mean, we all hate, listen, I hate Tom Brady. Right. Jet fans hate Tom Brady. I don't think Jet fans ever hated Steve Grogan.
No, same. I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. All right, so let's talk right now NHL playoffs. I'm going to, for those of you at home that are watching on the Facebook Live app, you'll see the proposed 24-team playoff rounds. So right now, the Rangers are looking to play against Columbus. So what do you think of that matchup?
Was it Columbus or Carolina?
Carolina, I'm sorry.
Right. So here's the interesting thing about it. Before I knew about a few stats, I thought, hey, the Rangers have a pretty good chance here. Obviously, Carolina feels that too, and why they voted no for the 24-team proposal. So I think that's a little telling. Carolina, I don't think, trusts their goaltending against the fifth-best offense. Getting past that, Henrik Lundqvist since 2011 is 25-5 against Carolina. Is David Quinn going to be hard-headed enough to never use Lundqvist and go through that the rest? Maybe if Lundqvist doesn't play and then retires, will he do that? Will he play Shesterkin first and see how he plays? And if he doesn't play well, then put Lundqvist in because Georgiev's never had playoff experience? It'll be an interesting thing, and unfortunately for Ranger fans and for David Quinn, because now you have rolled this into the playoffs, this 3-goalie situation is going to get uncomfortable.
I can't imagine that he plays anyone but Shesterkin. I agree the numbers are there, but it's a whole new ball game. Number one, you're talking playoffs. You're talking Henrik hasn't played. Again, how quickly at his age? I know he is in. I know he keeps himself in tremendous shape. But how quickly can Henrik get back in game shape to be?
Nobody's played, so I actually think veterans have an edge here. Because they've been through a lockout, they've been through these kinds of things. Wouldn't shock me if Lundqvist has access to a rink or something. I would think he actually could be in better shape than Shesterkin because Shesterkin, has never dealt with this before. So that's another thing where I think you have to think about.
That was my next question. Do you think it benefits the Rangers? Well, you had obviously just answered, but do you think it benefits the Rangers being a younger team, getting their skates back on and their legs right under them?
No, because I honestly think that's where Carolina will have a little bit of an edge because they've got the grizzled veterans. They know what to do. They do know how to stay in shape, as Mark said. So they get that little bit of an edge. But Carolina's goaltending is not good.
Right.
And whether it's Mrazek or James Reimer, that's an opportunity to win for the Rangers.
Let's take a look at some of the other matchups. And, I mentioned, Columbus, and I was thinking about that because that matchup, the 8-9, Toronto versus Columbus is the one that intrigues me. First of all, I don't know if Brandon Dubinsky's, ready to come back. I imagine
he's not going to be back.
He's not going to be back. Okay.
No.
So that's a big hurt for them. But, Toronto is that team that is really, this is it. I mean, for them at number one to be an 8 seed is kind of strange, with everything they've done, everything they've tried. This is kind of a make or break year for that team. Because if this team doesn't advance, and that's a tough matchup, because Tortorella is a very good coach. What do you see in that series?
Yeah, this is a tough matchup for the Leafs because I guess their Achilles heel would be their goaltending because Elvis has not really been that tested in his NHL career, although Korpisalo is a nice backup to have. So Torch's system could be what could beat the Leafs because Seth Jones back, they're completely healthy. Now, I don't want to be hypocritical because before the season began, most of us felt like they weren't even going to be a playoff team with the losses they had like Panarin and everything else, yet here they are. So they're going to be dangerous. The Leafs have a rookie coach. The Leafs don't have a great defense. The Leafs are going to have to outscore you, and if Torch plays his game the right way, I don't know, man. This could be one where Columbus edges out Toronto, and Toronto has another year to think about restructuring their team once again.
Yeah, there could be a major fire sale if they go out in the first round, even though it's, sometimes you look at this and say, okay, this was not a normal situation and we didn't have time to gear up, blah, 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 blah. But in the same respect, they've done everything to try and win that cup, and it's just not working. Then you move on to the Penguins versus the Habs. That's, I can't see Montreal getting through that series. That might be the one where that could be a sweep.
It could be a sweep, or it'll be
a 3-1 situation. Well, 4-1, right? Because best of 5. 4-1 situation. I look at that. It's interesting because I think Brooks was pumping up the legend of Carey Price. No offense to Carey Price, who had a really great year. But if you go look at his playoff performances, they haven't all been great. Yeah, he was doing really good against the Rangers till Kreider hit him. I get that. But he had one other good moment in the playoffs. Otherwise, he's had shaky moments. He's like a 9-14 playoff career-wise. So I don't think he's anything to fear, and their defense is nothing to fear. I mean, they lost against Detroit 4 times this year. Now, the one big equalizer here, I'd spoken to Steve Valiquette about a week ago on another podcast I do, and he felt like with a lot of teams calling him, they were calling to see what they did wrong this season, looking at the goaltending, looking at how teams were scoring, how they could prevent it. All teams had the benefit of this for the last couple of months, so maybe the Habs could plug up a few holes, but at the end of the day, they don't have much scoring.
All right, then you move on to the Islanders versus the Panthers. That's an interesting matchup. I think the Islanders should prevail, but again, you take a look, and that's why I like what they're doing, expanding the field, because the Panthers were starting to play well. They were starting to gel as a team. That was a team that looked like they might make a run. There's always that team at the end of the season, whether it could have been the Rangers this year or just as might well been the Panthers that could have gone on that magical run, made the last spot in the playoffs, and upset someone in the first round and get some momentum. The Islanders, on the other hand, were a team that, after an amazing start was, up and down, not consistent. Yeah. What do you see in that series?
Well, the great divide here is in net for Florida because it's Bob and then it's Chris Dridger. And Dridger was playing towards the end and winning because that's who Quenneville felt comfortable with because Bob was having a horrible year. Of course, they're going to go to Bob again. And if he were to be the Bob of old, this is now a tough series for the Islanders because I don't think either team is going to outscore you. And you have a matchup of Hall of Fame coaches in Quenneville and Trotz. So I honestly think this is the one series where we're going to be talking about the coaches more than we're going to be talking about the players. And I think it's a toss-up. I think it really depends on the play of Bobrovsky. I think the Islanders' goaltending won't win it for them and it won't lose it for them. Their lack of scoring will hurt them a little bit, but Florida's lack of scoring will probably hurt them. I think the difference is Bob. If Bob is great, they'll win, and if he's not, they won't win.
Mark was talking about that last team in, and so what do you guys think, but you too, Mark, of the situation where they kind of took that away and they're going to have these play-in series?
Yeah, the play-in's interesting because, as an example, like Canadian fans are counting themselves in the playoffs, but it's a real gray area. These are going to be playoff games, sorta, but they're not really playoff games because it's like a reality show. You got to, I don't know, maybe it's more like not Jeopardy, but one of the other ones, the one that Kimmel does. Every time you answer a question, you keep moving on. They're going to have to win 3 games in a row to make the final playoff bracket. You know what I mean? And that's just the start of it. So they're not exactly in. Right. And that's the hard part about this with these 3-game play-in that they're proposing is the teams that have to play that, as an example, like for reseeding, the Flyers would have to play Washington. They would have to play... who are the other two?
Tampa and Boston.
Tampa and Boston, thank you. Talk about, they could lose all 3 of those for seeding.
Right. Crazy.
And topple a few spots in the bracket, but Montreal has to just win out just to make it. That's the way I understand it anyhow.
And take a look at the other side. You have the defending Stanley Cup champions, the St. Louis Blues in that with the Avalanche, the Knights in Dallas.
Yeah.
No easy road there either.
Yeah, now that is tough. The other thing you have to worry about, and this is, again, Tampa was a team that voted no. I think that's a bad move for them psychologically to admit that, considering they got ousted in the first round last year. Right. They clearly showed, and if you want to say the word kvetched, to the league to make sure it was a best of 5 in the first round, in case they lose in the first round. It's almost like they're worried about that. If they didn't do well in the seeding, then all of a sudden they don't play a team they like. It's like Tampa seems to be, or at least Alex Killorn seems to be a little too worried about that. But you're right. As far as on the West, that's a tougher road for St. Louis to handle than it would have been in the regular season if the season had just been going like it normally would, and we're not talking about all the other things that happened in the world. That's the funny part.
I agreed. All right, so quickly before we go to break, let's take a quick look at the other side. So you got Calgary versus Winnipeg. That's a pretty interesting matchup. That kind of could be one of those wars that we used to see back in the day.
It's going to be great. I would say, as far as fan engagement on that one, the viewing numbers should be great. The only thing you worry about is, can Calgary get any kind of goaltending, meaning the right stops at the right time? Is Mike Smith going to be that guy? I don't know. I don't know. Rittich is probably a better goalie at this point, but again, I don't know. Maybe they'll go with Rittich. I just don't know how that's going to go, but Connor Hellebuck's a Vezina-type goalie this year. His GSAA is off the charts. It's like 24 point something. So he and Valakat thought he was the best goalie this year, and I kind of agree with him. So that's a tough one, although Winnipeg's defense is certainly not what it used to be without Bufflin and the other changes that they had made. So this one should basically be Winnipeg's special teams. They should have one of the best power plays in the league. If they do, they'll win the series.
All right, we got to go to break, so we'll talk more because we'll have time before the playoffs round. Once the camps start opening, we'll have some other news. But it's funny you mentioned Mike Smith, because I would say of the 15 years of doing this show, we probably had that conversation about playoffs about 7 years around Mike Smith.
I know.
It's crazy, right?
It is crazy. That's how sports is, though. It is crazy.
Yeah. All right, Russ, be good. Russ Cohen here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey Report. On the other side, we're going to talk a little PS4 and Major League Baseball, the show, with a creator of the RidinRosters and something that I've been addicted to. So you got to keep it right here for sure. But Scott Spindler is going to be joining us right after these messages.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the preceding program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
For every occasion, make it from the heart with a special gift from Ford's Jewelers.
From the heart, from the start, for the one who's a true work of art. Together or far apart, make it from the heart.
For an endless selection of gifts from the heart, see Ford's Jewelers with watches from Omega, Tag Heuer, and over 30 other top brands. A huge selection of certified diamonds at the guaranteed lowest prices. Jewelry designs by Scott K, Simon G, and many others. Fine gifts and accessories by Lennox, Swarovski, Yadro, and more. For fine diamonds, jewelry, watches, and gifts at amazing savings, see Ford's Jewelers.
Together or far apart, make it from the heart.
For every occasion, see Ford's Jewelers, New Jersey's legendary jeweler. 449 New Brunswick Avenue in Ford's.
The Hermanson Community Radio Show is on Bali 540 AM every Saturday morning at 9. With over 2 decades of service to the tri-state area, including announcements, exclusive events, and all your favorite music, the Hermanson Community Radio Show Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. To contact the Hermanson Community Radio Show for a special request or announcement, call 718-805-4900. That's 718-805-4900. The Hermanson Community Radio Show on Bali 540 AM. For all your real estate needs, call 718-805-4900.
During this unprecedented time in New Jersey, it is important to stay safe and healthy in all areas of your life. At 800-GAMBLER, we realize that social distancing can lead to increased time spent with online gambling due to feelings of isolation, loneliness, and boredom. Our helpline remains available 24 hours per day, 7 days per week to provide support, treatment, and hope to those in need. If you or someone you know is struggling with or living with someone who has a gambling problem and wants help, call us today at 800-GAMBLER or visit us at www.800gambler.org. We remain a phone call or click away. You're never alone. This message sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Cap off a weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 540 AM from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out sportstalknylive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 540 AM.
In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, I'm Howie Rose, and you're listening to Mark and AJ on 540 Sports Talk New York.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenman.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Rosenman and Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is the man who is the lead creator for the RidinRosters team, who have been creating the full minors fan-made rosters for MLB The Show fans for well over a decade. He and his team of 3 other creators have seen the roster grow in popularity so much that over 150,000 plus people downloaded the roster each year. This past April, the RidinRosters team also released Long Balls and Legends Volume 1, the first in a series of era-themed rosters. Sets featured players from the late 80s through the 90s. I'm addicted to the game because of their add-on rosters. It is a thrill to welcome Scott Spindler to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. And it's a little bit of a connection with the segue there, as my Colin Cosell walk-up intro includes Bruce's Rosalita, but there's a Bruce connection with your Twitter handle as well. Can you tell our viewers where the writing part of RidinRosters comes from and what the connection is and why you use it?
Well, it started actually years ago from Backstreets.com. My handle on Backstreets.com was Riding Down Kingsley, and I kind of kept it when I ventured into the sports gaming world and the roster creating world, and I kind of just morphed it from Riding Down Kingsley to RidinRosters. And Bruce fans will know that Riding Down Kingsley is actually one of the opening lines from one of Bruce's songs, Something in the Night from Darkness on the Edge of Town. So it's just something that I've just kept over the years.
I guess you figured you'd get it right? So.
Exactly.
All right, so I have to tell you that you basically are the answer to my prayers. I have not had a gaming system for about 12 to 15 years. About a month ago on this show, our football beat reporter was telling, I said, I can't get into these esports and watching these guys play. And he goes, no, don't knock it, Mark. The NHL is unbelievable. The show's unbelievable. So, back in April, I bought myself a PS4, and full disclosure, back in the day, I was a huge micro league baseball guy. Back in the day of the Commodore 64. Okay,
yep.
Most recently, loved out of the park baseball. But as great as those games were, for me, micro league tried. They did this really hokey type thing where they had these digitalized clips of, like, if you got a single, a digitalized guy, almost to like what the 1970s scoreboards used to have. The animation.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I always missed the graphic part of the game. So I got MLB The Show, and then I kept on saying, man, this would be cool if I could play, with some of the guys. And, I'm a type of guy, get it out of the box. I don't really read the manual. So I was just searching, and I said, there are add-on rosters? And I came across an article about the Long Ball and Legends roster, and it's a game changer for me. So tell us a little bit of your background first, and then how you started creating these add-on rosters.
Well, it started off as a hobby, probably 15, 20 years ago, maybe even longer. I just, in college and, right out of college when I first started getting into the gaming world, I've always been a baseball fan. So, games would come out, they would release certain games, whether it be for, one of the gaming systems or for the PC. And, a lot of the games had editable features where, you can go in and you could edit players, and they might have a lot of, fake players because there was licensing issues and stuff like that. So I was just, super, OCD about it. So I just went in and I started creating my own rosters with the real players. And then it morphed into, okay, well, you're creating all these players, but we got to get them to play like they really play. So then it started going into, okay, well, let's start watching videos, and let's start, doing scouting reports, and let's, 20 years ago, watching, as many baseball games as I could on TV and taking notes, and, and then it just kind of morphed over the years to actually going to spring training sites and going to batting practices and going to workouts and going to games and going, wherever I could get access to, just to, collect scouting data. And I, started developing these rosters with somebody about 10 years ago. They were called the Full Miners rosters. They were actually operating sports as a gaming site. There was a bunch of guys on there that had been working on rosters for years, and they kind of morphed it into, basically there were 30 guys, and everybody had their own team, and they would create their team, and then they would put it all together, and then we would put out an Operation Sports Full Miners roster. And I became a part of that. And then once that started gaining popularity, there was a lot of homerism, I like to say, with that, just because there were so many people involved in it. Like you have a Mets fan, creating, all the Mets are super high rated and stuff like that. So we started, as the years went on, we started changing it, shortening the group down a little bit, and eventually we got it down to a smaller group. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, one of the creators that was working with me, he decided to step away. So I kind of took it and ran with it a little bit. And the last few years with social media and the way, social media has been with Twitter and stuff like that, we kind of morphed it into Full Miners rosters, which, just kind of took off. And I mean, when we first started putting them out there a few years back, we were getting, 50, 60, 70,000 downloads. And then over the last, 2 or 3 years, we went to 100, 150,000 downloads. And, I was getting calls from, MLB Network and Uprocks and Sporting News and all these, publications on, wanting to talk about these rosters and stuff. Because the game it wasn't licensed for minor league players. There were no minor league players in the game at the time. It was only major league players or guys on the 40-man roster were in any of the video games. So for me, it was just a fan thing. I did it for fun. Or, none of us made any money on it or anything like that. It was just, just for the game, just because we love the game so much. And, we did it with a huge amount of detail and accuracy, as much as we possibly could, to the point where we were actually reaching out to players, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We started reaching out to players via email or on Twitter or wherever we can get them. And, they would send us their scouting reports, or they would send us details on what pitches they were throwing or what gear they were wearing for that season. And then the last couple of years, it really, really blew up. And I made a lot of contacts in the business, especially in MLB and MILB and, people in the front offices and, scouts and stuff like that. And then last year, towards the end of the season, Sony acquired a contract to actually put minor league players in the game. And when they do, they reached out to me and wanted to collaborate and work together on a partnership to put some of our fan-created stuff in the game. So it was a big thrill this year. I got to go out to San Diego and work with Sony and spent a week out there and worked in the studio with them on getting a lot of our rosters into the game. And
we're continuing to partner right now. I still, work with them as often as possible whenever they need, something for a roster update or whatever. And, I try to help them out wherever they can with that. And we're hoping to continue the partnership going forward into the next couple of years. But, we kind of took the long ball and legends thing. That was kind of it was kind of my own project, to be honest with you. It was kind of something that I was doing for myself. I wanted to do a roster based off of past guys, there was a roster already out there from 1987 that somebody by the name of Jim Myers had created, and it was just pretty much 1987 season and a lot of the players, and I was like, oh wow, this would be kind of cool if we could kind of make it 1987 but kind of add on like 88, 89, and just kind of add on players throughout the 90s that came in during different times. And so like you might start off in that roster at the Yankees, and you have like Ron Guidry and Willie Randolph and Dave Winfield and Ricky Henderson, and then in your minor league system you still have young Derek Jeter, who wasn't really in the system at that time, but it's a fantasy roster. It's kind of just based off of fantasy. But you have a Derek Jeter there, you have Bernie Williams and Andy Pettitte and stuff like that. And so I kind of did that with all the teams, and like Jason Varitek was a 18-year-old with the Mariners on the roster, and it was something really kind of cool that was a lot of work, because those rosters, they're not just putting players' names in and putting their stats in or their attributes, which we call like their hitter, hitting versus right hand or hitting versus left hand. It's also you're putting in their equipment and their stances and also their facial features. Right. So
well, that's what stands out to me. All right, so for some of the minor league guys that never made it, maybe that detail is not that important. But when I see Joe Morgan and you have his arm flap, correctly, or Rose in the crouch, or just different things, and the faces are so close, like the George Brett, it's scary how close it is to George Brett. So walk me through the process of recreating a player like that, and then additionally, like, obviously players change, like Kirby Puckett over the course of his career, his weight fluctuated tremendously from a rookie season towards the end, or McCovey from the early days, he had those huge sideburns. Towards the end he didn't. Which facial picture do you use, and how do you decide that process?
Well, so it's a process, and right now, I have a team of me and three guys. I have two guys who are superb face guys, face artists, we call them, and they can pretty much create any face as accurate as anybody in the world can possibly create them, without actually doing a face scan, which Sony will actually do. And they, if you go to Sony Studios and you're a current MLB player and you want to get scanned to be in the game, they'll actually sit you down and go through a process, and they'll scan you in. But there's also a process of using an artist rendering, which we do. We basically create them, and it's a process, because you're gathering all their data, whether their height and their weight and stuff like that. And for a Long Balls and Legends roster, it's a little difficult, because you're kind of like, we had that, looking at that roster, we had that issue with Barry Bonds. We created a Barry Bonds, from the late 90s originally, and we're like, in the early 90s, he didn't look like that right off the bat. He was a little bit bulkier, obviously, towards the end of his career. So we had to go in and kind of modify his height, modify his weight, modify his just his overall appearance, and it's kind of a little bit more difficult when you're going off of those era, pictures or era pieces. So that was a very unique thing. But what we tried to do is like basically looking at the team. So in other words, like the Pirates starting team that they were fielding, and you had Bonds in there, and it was you want to make him fit with the year, the theme of the current team that's playing, depending on his level. If we had him in there as an 18-year-old kid, I would kind of say, okay, well, he's 18, he might not make the major league till he's 22. What would he look like in 4 years? And then you kind of gotta, so it's a whole process like that. There is a lot to it. It's similar even today, like when we create the minor league players that we create, because a lot of times they change year to year.
Right.
So, we're working on these rosters year round. We're constantly updating, constantly, like I looked at the waiver wire, the MLB waiver wire last night, and I saw there was a bunch of cuts. The Orioles had like 37 minor league cuts. So I'm going right in, and I'm, my base roster that I keep, I go right in there and I make those changes right away. And, I'm also constantly, scanning social media and scanning, different things now with the players. A lot of the players are actually playing video games, so you can find them on Twitch or you can find them on YouTube, and just looking to see what their current looks are. A lot of players are, sporting long hair this year, and they didn't have long hair last year. They have a beard this year, and they didn't. So we try to keep up with it as much as possible, to the point where, this past, March and April, because, baseball kind of stopped, and a lot of the players were playing MLB The Show. And I mean, there was an MLB The Show Players League. We had hundreds and hundreds of players reach out to, me and my team, just say, hey, can you get me in the game? Or can you, this is what I'm wearing, or can you update my equipment? Or I throw this, I don't throw that. Or can you check my speed? All kinds of crazy stuff. So, we fix what we can, and anything we can't fix, we'll forward to Sony and the guys there, and they'll get it in where, when they can possibly get stuff in. But yeah, it's a process, man. There's a lot to it.
It's crazy. I kind of dropped the ball on this. I didn't think of this until yesterday. I sent Scott, a link to me and Josh at Fantasy Camp and said, could you try and create, two of us? But it was way too short notice. It would have been cool to pop it up on the screen.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely. We'll get those to you guys, so you guys can pop them up on a show soon, because we want to make sure we get them right. We don't want we don't want to send you generic photos out there, but we'll get you guys in the game and get you in the player vault, and then you can download and add it to any of your rosters and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool.
I just popped up the bonds you were talking about, which is very cool. Hey, Ron, you had a question.
The attention to detail is amazing, and in the beginning of the interview, you said there's a little bit of an OCD factor, and for me as well, whenever I'm playing around with rosters, and I've downloaded custom rosters before, but how much did it help having people come in? Like, when did you realize you were going to need help and people to bounce ideas off of, so that it didn't become overwhelming?
It's from the beginning. I mean, I constantly, I've got a group text chat with the three guys that we do rosters with. One's, his name's Chase Bass. He lives in Las Vegas. We've got a guy named Chris who lives in Chicago, and a guy named James who lives out in Michigan. So the four of us, we text almost on a daily basis on different things. Right now, we're actually working on a fan-made, amateur draft roster. So we have all the players for the current amateur draft all ready to go, and probably within a day after the amateur draft this year, we'll have a roster up in the vault with all the teams, with all the players right from the amateur draft that you can just download and play with. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's a process that I can never do alone. I like to get feedback from as many people as possible, even when I'm doing different things. When we're creating these rosters, I'll send it to somebody else, and I'll say, hey, take a look at this. I have a guy, Chase, who he'll go through the roster within, an hour. He can go through all the teams, or a couple hours, go through all the teams, and he'll pick out mistakes and stuff like that. He's got a super, super good eye for attention to detail. So it's something that, even with, having a bunch of guys that work together, it still sometimes is overwhelming, because we all have day jobs, and, something like this. I mean, it's a lot of work for sure, but we love to do it. We've been doing it for a long time. So, we see the enjoyment that a lot of people get from the rosters. And when you have players and, guys in the game of MLB, and guys in minor league baseball, and guys in the front office, and, all kinds of guys reaching out to you and talking to you and telling you how much they like it, it makes it well worth it.
Yeah, the passion definitely comes through. We're up against a break. Scott, I got to thank you so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for letting me be Mike Piazza, Ken Griffey Jr., and Willie Mays this entire month. It's definitely helped a lot. So thank you so much.
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it. Scott Spindler of Scout Scoops and Riding Rosters. We'll be back with Chaim Tauber right after this.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural, ornamental, stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman and Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. It's time for the Disaster Cleanup Services NBA Report with Chaim Tauber. Chaim, how you doing today?
Doing all right, guys. Pretty good. Thanks. Yourself?
Pretty good. So obviously, the only thing really to talk about NBA-wise is the final episodes of The Last Dance aired. Your feelings on it and the overall reception it got.
I mean, the overall reception it got was awesome. Let me start with that. And what's so I mean, this is an era in, you know, we spoke about it for the last couple of weeks. We're left with nothing but nostalgia. And you know, this was a shared communal experience, the likes of which the sports world might never have had other than, say, for, I don't know, the Super Bowl or the World Cup, the Olympics. This was something almost on that magnitude in that, what else were we going to watch? And it wasn't just the sportsmen. It drew everybody in, and it was awesome to see. In terms of, you know, the documentary itself, it's taken with a grain of salt. I mean, again, Michael Jordan is arguably the GOAT. I guess he's either the GOAT or GOAT A or B. But again, this is a Michael Jordan approved documentary. The timing of which, I mean, I'm not going to go as far as some others who said, LeBron's passing him, so Michael's got to keep his name fresh. But the timing of it is curious. Why now, all these years later, and when the conversation is centered around LeBron and LeBron surpassing him, now it's released. I don't, for those that grew up watching 90s basketball, I don't think you learned all that much. I mean,
right, that's true.
You knew who Dennis Rodman was. You knew how great those teams were. You know what Michael meant. You knew how great Scottie Pippen was. But for the next generation, for those who have no idea, that Scottie Pippen should be right up there with Kevin Durant in terms of, point forward combo guards and greats of all time. For those that don't realize what Dennis Rodman really was and what he meant to the games, what he meant to those teams, that it wasn't all Michael all the time. And for those who were, just a couple of months ago before, COVID dominated everything, we're talking about Mamba mentality, you get to kind of really get a peek behind the curtain of where it originated. And I think that was just good for sports in general. It was wholesome, it was refreshing, and it was very necessary.
Agreed. And we were talking before, we weren't sure how popular it would have been had it been played while live sports were going on. We think that the fact that this happened when there were no live sports added to the viewership, and just similar to the way Tiger King took off. No live sports. I mean, this definitely captivated a nation. Surprisingly, and we were trying to figure out what athlete you could do the next Last Dance with, and we were throwing around a couple of names before we let you go. Who do you think could sustain an episode, a series like that? A current player.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think I don't think it should be player oriented. I don't know if that's cheating the question.
Right. That was.
I think if you're going to get a look behind the most recent Warriors dynasty, or a look behind the Patriots, take any one of their Super Bowl seasons, particularly one of these last ones. They take the last season for the Patriots. I would love to get a look behind the Belichick Brady dynamic and see what happened there. See how he ended up in Tampa. Yeah, I would love a peek behind the glass at the New England Patriots more so than anybody else, and a look at Belichick and Brady and all that.
That's a great one.
Again, I think that they have a lot of classified information that we probably wouldn't be allowed to see.
Right.
Peters.
All right. I am Tauber here each and every week with the NBA Report. We pivot from From basketball to the gridiron. It's time now for the NFL Report with Jay Retcher, sponsored by Just Escape Long Island. Do you and your team have what it takes to race against the clock using your wits and instincts to complete a mission and escape the room? Well, pretty soon, hopefully, you're going to get the chance to taste your problem-solving skills at Just Escape in Massapequa and have an experience like no other. With 5 fun and challenging rooms, all varying in difficulty and scare factor, Just Escape will be the perfect, unique day out that we all need for all ages. Great for corporate and fundraising events, birthday parties too. Are you up for the challenge? I know we all are. We're itching to escape our own rooms. Do you have the cooperation, creativity, and focus to escape? Call them now or check them out online, justscapeli.com. Make reservations for when we're able to do this. It'll definitely be worth it. All right, so right now, I guess what I really want to talk about is the New York Jets and a move they made, which to me is kind of surprising. You have, to my opinion, a better quarterback out there as a free agent in Cam Newton, yet you signed Joe Flacco as your backup. Why do you think the Jets went that route? You know, if you're looking for, that veteran backup, why not go for Cam?
Well, a couple reasons too. I mean, one, you're going to have to change your system if you're going to have Cam Newton as your quarterback. He's a guy that really relies heavily on the run game. We saw the last couple of years of Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. But also, I think Cam's still at that point where he thinks he deserves to be a starter. I mean, he's still got that mindset that he's the MVP and he's of that caliber where he's not, I know it's probably, he's probably in the minority of thinking this, but he still thinks that he's one of the best, 32 quarterbacks in the league. Joe Flacco knows, sees the writing on the wall, what happened last year with Denver, and Drew Lock, the guy there now. And I think he's a guy that's looking, hey, if I could just kind of latch on with the team here, maybe I'll get my opportunities. Maybe I'll learn under the right system. And maybe there's an opportunity for him down the road. But, yeah, I just think a lot of it has to do with Cam not thinking he's a backup yet.
Before we let you go, the other big news in the NFL is they came out with the top 10 selling jerseys. How many of them were Tom Brady and Gronkowski Tampa Bay jerseys, the various different types of Tampa Bay jerseys? I think between the two of them, I think 6 of them were in the top 10.
That's not surprised at all, man. Being down here in Tampa, I mean, I got a Tampa Bay Brady shirt on right now from watching the match just now. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, the city of Tampa and the city of St. Pete have been turned on their heads with Tom Brady and Gronk coming here. And it's just the beginning, man. Once training camp, if they do have a training camp, comes into play, and then the season starts, it's going to be even crazier down here.
So how much did that, golf tournament today resonate in Tampa Bay, had he not been with Tampa Bay and just a New England Patriot?
There's a lot of golfers down here anyway, but yeah, definitely more added input in there because of Tom Brady being involved. And then you have Sean Payton tweeting in, and then Tom ripping his pants and making that big shot. And I tell you, just being the media down here in Tampa Bay, there wasn't a media member that wasn't tweeting about the event. I don't know if you could say that if Tom Brady wasn't a member of the Buccaneers. So it definitely contributed to it.
All right, Jay, you got to check out Long Balls and Legends. I know you're the guy that turned me on to the BS4, but RidinRosters, go into the vault and download Long Balls and Legends. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. It's crazy.
You got it. I'm doing it tonight.
All right. Jay Retcher here each and every week with the Just Escape NFL Report. We hope you enjoyed the show, whether it be over the radio, whether it be on the Facebook Live or the YouTube Live, or even just on our website, sportstalknylive.com. Appreciate you hanging in with us. We'll see everyone next week when our guests will be Oakland Raiders, Fred Biletnikoff. So make sure you tune in then. See everyone next week. Be safe. Be healthy.